Hello and welcome to Warblog. I'm pretty sure my microphone's working now, but I just want to do a quick run through this game without doing too much talking. Oh look, I should play it first. So, I just wish I could play the whole thing in 15 minutes. Now, the last time I played this, I got a defender eliminated on that whole stack. Flippity flops, what's that? One minute. Okay. Now, I sort of didn't think a lot last time. This is definitely a thinking game. Whether I'm any good at thinking is something else. But when I say thinking, I mean there's lots of different ways of doing it. But what I'm sort of getting to is it's very easy to just sort of plough everything into this. I want to sort of think about it and play it a little more what I call strategically, which is a sort of oxymoron to a small degree. But it's just, well, I get frustrated when I see people playing a game, especially things like the Eastern Front, World War II, and they just get straight in there and start hacking units in. And I think, to some extent, there's an interesting argument regarding being able to make decisions quickly and play quickly in that regards. Because if you were, say, a commander, you'd have to make decisions quickly. But here it comes now. Well, where are you? There you are. Now, what I'm trying to get to is, I think this mechanised units need to be the spearhead. I mean, just to put it into perspective, what I'm going to do with these mechanised units is send them this way. Now, I mean, what this sort of boils down to in my mind's eye is a careful placement of units reflecting some kind of intelligent thought. Now, obviously I could have done this differently. I could have gone up there and maybe across here, but I'm trying to stretch my consciousness here with regards to actually just not playing school playground football. I always think of it like that, where everyone chases after the ball. Now, I mean, there's no reason why I had to use more mechanised units over this way, because these units would have got there just as quickly. So there really is no reason for that. But I want to build up sort of equal forces here. So there's 6 points in there. 4, 5. I mean, I know last time I did it, I got a defender eliminated on that stack, but I just did it so quickly. Right, so what we've got in there, let's reload. One, two, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 6, 7, and in here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, well, let's put an outlier here. Okay, so that's my first sort of strategic move, and I'm doing it like that because I want to think about it. So, I mean, what I tried to do is put a front line here of fairly strong units with the option to do something else with this mechanized group. Now my artillery is in striking range because it's got 5 range, but he's run out of movement points. So the next thing to do is, he got the air power, but I think the next thing to do is to consider this. And it's a similar sort of situation really, but I think it's sort of a no-brainer to move into there. And his defense is 4, so that's automatically 1 to 1 there. So it's 4, so that's 12, 19. So that's going to be a 4 to 1. Now what I'm going to do is the Chadian Air Force carry out a little strike in there. Okay, so that was 1 fatigue on each of these, which puts them down to a total of 3.6. I'm not going to get my calculator out, but that might put me up to 5 to 1. Now, the artillery rules have sort of changed. Now that's quite powerful artillery, 7, so it's going to give me a 2 to 1 odd factor. So it's not going to factor in to my overall odds anymore. It will be carried out separately. So my attack factors are a little lower than I was thinking just a moment ago, but they go in first. So I could sort of do it separately, but let's do it all at once and see what I get. So I'm doing some thinking aloud here, rule-wise. So we know that they're fatigued of 1, so they're worth 3.6. So we've got 12, which would be ordinarily 3 to 1, and it's still going to be 3 to 1. And then the artillery will come in and do its own attack, so this should be 3 to 1, totaling up about 12 plus 10%, that's 1.2, so it's 13.2. I'm actually going to get my calculator out. Plus we've got mechanised against infantry only. I'm not even going to bother with the calculations because it's just getting that much too complicated. It's not that that's wrong, it's just that I'm not going to try and figure it out. but there will be additions for that, which when you think about it is 1.5. So he'll be worth something like 9. So that'll be 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Plus 10%, 1.5, 15, 16. 16.5, whatever. I will get my calculator out. 16.5 divided into 3.6. So that's going to be 4 to 1. Let's see what actually happens. Okay, so I've got the 4 to 1 odds. I did no damage on the first unit, but I secured a 1 damage on the irregular unit through the artillery. I had 16.5, which is what I calculated, and versus 3.6, and I've got a die roll of 2. So I actually got all the calculations correct, and I can't even figure out how I did it. I just did it. So now he should have 1 depression. He's depressed 1.5. Now the reason he's depressed 1.5, I think, is because he was irregular, so he received some damage at some point, and it was halved. Because he's irregular, it's halved. So anyway, so that's interesting. So essentially, the company. This is where the irregulars become a little more powerful, because the company, well, that was DE. The company was destroyed, but the irregulars managed to essentially run away, and so they're down here now. And the regulars will keep doing that. There's sort of like a 90% chance that they will be able to do that, or an 80% chance. So they won't be able to do it all the time, but that's going to become fairly significant, especially when it comes to containing them, which is the whole idea of this sort of campaign. And that's why I've sort of done this to some extent, because we're actually really just trying to contain these units. I think we know when we engage them, we're going to win, even if they run away. But I don't want to give them too many easy opportunities to take out these weak sort of companies, and even these larger companies of 3, on their own they could be, vulnerable. So. Right, well, air power. Let's see what we can do over here. Now, just as an aside, air power is it still works in the old way, and I might move it over, or it uses its own control interface. I might move it over to work in the new way, because essentially it's working up against the odds. So if I attack with just 1 unit, I've got 3 versus a defense of 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Now that doesn't make sense, because the more units they have, the less likely I am to hit, which doesn't make sense. I should be able to hit all of them, just like with the artillery now. So I will possibly be moving the air power over to that new system. But I'm still not satisfied with the new system as it stands. Not so much I'm not satisfied. It's just there's something not quite right about it. But I've sort of got my head around it. It's almost as though you can't miss. You're always going to hit with artillery, and that's the argument I'm trying to contend with, because you're always going to hit with artillery to some extent. I mean, you can't miss, because artillery misses anyway. That's by its very nature. Artillery, it's not like shooting someone with a gun. Do you hit? I mean, entire, companies and battalions will take evasive action or even run away when they are under artillery fire, even if they haven't been hit. I mean, they can't run away if they've been hit, because they'd be dead. So it's sort of one of these things where you're actually modelling more the barrage effect and the fact that it will have an effect no matter what, as opposed to trying to hit in this sense. Anyway, it's nearly 15 minutes, so I'm going to leave it at that. I'm going to go on for another 15 minutes. I might do a bit of this, but I don't want to make it more than an hour, even if I do more than one. But I think I'm going to put all the air power into this, see what happens. 1 to 1, no result. Okay, I reiterate my thoughts on air power being like artillery. So that's that. Let's move on to the other people's turn. It's such a vast game, and then we're going to get through it. Even if I'm not even sure you get to turn 4, but I was thinking as I was waiting for that last one to upload that the Churden's main objective here will be still to protect its border. Now maybe I should put some more companies in here just to give them that sort of border, because that was their first objective. And similarly, this border is undefended. Now, there are not really objectives across there, so we're sort of overlooking that. But over here, the idea now is do Boko Haram want to retreat, hold back. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to try my artillery, see how effective it is. So we've got 2 points of artillery firing into there, which is interesting because so we're ignoring that. Three units. The first one got 0.3 damage. The next one got 0.2 damage. And the third one was no effect. And I'm sort of interested in that because that's sort of working in my mind's eye, because those units will now have to either stop to recover that damage, because it will affect. I mean, it will be 0.3 of a value, so not a lot, but you know, they will still be down on their defense and offensive factors. But the first two, so that single artillery piece was able to affect, almost in decreasing orders of magnitude, all of the units in there, but with a fair sort of spread, but not too effectively. So they have been damaged, but you know, it'd take a lot of that, and that's what I was back to the game. That was what I was trying to achieve with artillery. The little unit like that can actually have an effect, but it's proportionate to its size. And I mean, firing any artillery into anything is going to affect it. Okay, so that's that piece of artillery. Do we have any artillery over here? Oh, let's just see. Now that's interesting. I shouldn't be able to do that. Let's pretend I didn't see that. Oh no. No, I shouldn't be able to do that because I'm not there. I wonder if I could just do that. Nope. So why is that actually seeming to work? Number 41. Oh, not to worry at this moment. He's available. He's an insurgent, and that's an irregular. Now the question to some extent is, how much effort do I put in over here? Now historically they did counterattack here and take out Futukul, which is interesting really, because you can almost see that as making sense. Now the thing to sort of add on top of that is that this is not a sort of a sensible replication of what was there. I don't know how many forces. Well, like I said, there should be a lot more Chadian forces, I think, just to give it a spread, because otherwise, you know, there's nothing to stop them going into Limani, and I'm sure they would have taken care of the whole border. But then again, if they did, maybe they're not going across the border directly and so aggressively because they don't actually want to start a war with Chad. You know, they've made no, or this is Cameroon. You know, they've made no sort of direct assault against Cameroon. Although they are, you know, they're fighting the Nigerian government, not the Cameroon government. So maybe that's, you know, maybe there's sort of, we can say, well, we're not going to cross this border, but we're going to try and defend or you know, counter strike over here. And the question is how, and then what do we do with the rest of these forces with regards to the impeding Nigerian government offensive? You know, do we start moving them over here to create a front line? Do we start falling back, or start using the space to sort of spread out? Which is sort of what I was thinking. Now, what I'm going to do over here, I've just had a sort of brainwave. Now, I'm thinking a million things at the same time and unable to process anything. I'm going to move the regular infantry back, basically. I'm going to create a falling defence with, so he's moved, with the irregulars, because the irregulars will be able to retreat. Now, this mechanised unit I'm going to redeploy. Here. I'm doing that just because it gives me the ability to look at this border and to deal with any flanks across here. I mean, it's all prosaic sort of stuff. What I'm really trying to do, I can't move the artillery because he's fired, which is maybe a mistake. But we've got this motorised unit. And I think we'll move him to there. So anything that's not anything that's not irregular, I want to sort of redeploy into a sort of more dynamic role. These little infantry companies, I think, can go somewhere where they'll be static. So what have we got here? Irregulars. So we've got some troops over here. Yeah, taking the roads is going to be a good idea for these guys. Well, no fear of naval invasion, so let's go this way. Okay, let's see what we can do with these insurgents. We're doing it properly now. Okay. So there's only one to attack. Let's attack him. Four. Capture roll versus chance of 96. I think my assault roll was 9. I can never remember how this works. I keep thinking I figure it out again. I need a high one of those, so it failed. But the chance of being caught was 96 and I rolled a 4. So I didn't get caught. So that had no effect. However, I still have movement. But unfortunately I'm stuck in a zone of control. Now that's sort of not right. Well, that's tough. We've got another insurgent here. So let's try the same thing. Insurgent action failed. but was not caught. Okay, so they're pretty crap. We do have some armour, so we might as well use it. Okay. What I want to do here is split these people up a bit, bringing the irregulars more in this direction. You can stay there. It really does make sense moving along the road. 3 movements along the road, or 1 across the scrub. Well, still got movement, so I'm going to try again. Insurgent action failed. 17, not very good. It's probably too tough. So the thing is with this, there's so much going on that to try and do anything in 15 minutes, just pushing it really. Have I thought about this unit? No. That's it, isn't it? So okay. Decision action failed. Not very good. I'm going to put these irregulars onto that road. Okay. Only a minute left. 15 minutes a turn. I'm not really sure what I've done there, but I think I'm going to commit this attack in here. Now, the nice thing about this is we've got some armour that negates the infantry versus mechanised modifiers. I'm not going to do the calculations. Let's just see what happens. 3 to 1, defend and retreat. That was nice. Well, Okay, so I'm going to go for another video. They just go so quickly. If anything, there's some movement. Move 0, move 0. All these are insurgents. I'll have to sort that thing out. Move 0, move 0, move 1. Okay. So that's basically that unit there. He should be able to move into there. I don't know, because it's 1, it's a 1.2 to move across there, so I'm going to be pretty much stuck no matter what I do. Okay, well that's quite nice, because that should mean that he's got depressions. I don't think there's much else to do. I don't want to sit there. If I was playing this properly, I would probably spend a lot more time thinking about it and trying to get my head around what resources the Boko Haram had in order to sort of point them in the right direction. I think it's one of those games I think you'd have to play it through once and then come back and play it again the second time, because a lot will happen once the reinforcements start coming on from the Cameroon and from Niger, and also the Chadian units and the Benin units, as well as any sort of Nigerian reinforcements, as well as the fact that the Boko Haram do get reinforcements themselves, more in the line of more insurgent units and irregulars. So it's interesting, and I think the only other thing to say is, just to reiterate, it's a strategic game, so you've got to sort of think of it in those lines. I mean, it could be 3 weeks that for a turn, and in that time there's plenty of opportunity for disgruntled tribes to come and join. There's probably ample traffic going up and down this road. There's probably even traffic going through this road. They're probably being checkpointed by Nigerian troops, but there's probably quite a porous border, and they're probably driving their little pickup trucks through here, and it's not a sort of. I think I always try to battle this idea that it's Second World War, and there's this clear front line. There's quite often not. All we've got really is that these troops are occupying this village. Potiskum, and there's some out obviously just to the southeast, but generally speaking, they'll probably be in the village and doing whatever they do when they're in villages and towns, taking control of it, as opposed to all sitting there in trenches waiting for the Nigerians to advance. They've probably got a couple of scouts that will alert them, etc., etc. So it's now the multinational joint task force turn, and the Chadians are a bit despondent because they've been ousted from Gamboru. Do they try and take it back? Well, that's not something that can be done in the... Oh yes, yes they can. It's their turn. Okay. Okay. I'm going to try some artillery into this stack here. That's interesting. Right. Okay. That's a lot of damage. Now, that is some heavy artillery. and it is heavy artillery. And so this is one reason I'm sort of playing it in this sort of spirit, just generally faffing around. But artillery is quite powerful, and this is a powerful artillery piece, and it's really done a lot of damage against the insurgents. It also did a lot of damage against the irregulars, this irregular unit here. Now what probably happened, I mean, he's got a defense of 2, the artillery's got 7, so it would have been a 3-to-1. And the fact is he hit. Now it would have only had I mean, this is like an 80% chance, 65%, 50% chance. So that was a 37%, 35% chance of hitting, and he hit. So that was a really good spread. So that was an incredible barrage, and obviously didn't hit the last unit. But that's a huge amount of damage against this irregular unit, and I was actually really hoping to do something against the mechanised unit, but it was slightly larger. And to be quite honest, I'm interested in that result. This first unit has taken probably the largest chunk relatively. I mean, it was the same strength as that. He could have taken a 5 on that, but that was a 3-to-1 odds. And let me just actually have a look at the rules. So 3-to-1. What amazes me is you can actually click on it, and it does actually go down there. So 3-to-1, you can only get a maximum of 3 damage, so that's actually not right. I think I know what's happened there. It's adding them up as it goes along. We've got 3. I don't know. Just no way. I mean, because just no way of thinking about this properly. Unless okay, I'm going to have to think about that. Okay, I had a little think and I haven't changed anything. I think it probably is correct. The odds on here, I think we understand that when things are hit, they get hit, etc. So what I mean by that, there was a 80% chance of that first one being hit, 65 of the second one, 50, etc., etc. So that we can accept that they were lucky on those. It's not 50% chance. That's not bad. So here it would have been a 3-to-1, which gives you a 1-to-3 damage roll, and he got a 3. So that's not bad. The only thing I may be thinking about is that they are integer values in the sense that it's either 1, 2, or 3. So it's not going to go from, say, 1, 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, 1. As smooth and more incremental. I mean, the jumps are quite high. On here, it was firing at 7, so it's basically a 1-to-1 because it wasn't quite 8. So on a 1-to-1, he was 0.222. So he rolled very low. In fact, he rolled the lowest. So we've got the highest there and the lowest there. On this one now, this was the one that sort of I thought, hang on, that doesn't work. But what I'm thinking now is that, and I'd have to look at the video again, which I can't be bothered, is that this unit was in the town. In fact, I could maybe have a quick look at this. You can always see it from this thumbnail there. So if you look at the original setup, we've got this unit and this unit in in that place. And if you remember, we beat them. We were there, and we attacked them, and then they retreated here. So, and that's the hex we're attacking. So basically, they were already damaged, and they would have been damaged by about 2, which would have made them 1.6. So 1.6 against 7. So 7. I'm using my calculator on this because my brain's not working. Is 4 to 1 odds. 4 to 1 odds would have given them a 1 to 4. Now, how we got the idea of 5 damage, I don't know. But if you look at him now, he's got 4. So there's something not quite right, but it's not as bad as it seems. Now what I'm thinking, and this is ironic, because the damage against the irregular units should have been halved, and what I'm thinking is it's halving by half, which is doubling. If you divide by 1 over 2, the fraction, you're actually multiplying it, or something like that. Well, I don't, maybe I'm not explaining it right, but I think that's maybe what's happening. So I think what we might find is that he got 2.5, which doesn't make a lot of sense again, but if that was 2.5 doubled to 5, but then effectively done at that could explain things. But essentially he got 2 damaged. If he was, now this last guy wasn't damaged at all. You see, that sort of makes sense there, because he was at 3.5 and that was double. So anyway, not the emergency that it should be, but not the fantastic video it should be either now. So, however, this is sort of moving more towards what I want, not a stupid game that doesn't work, so I have to figure that out. But the artillery is quite powerful, and so Boko Haram really have to sort of think about whether they move away from that artillery. Whereas before, the artillery was sort of something you add with another stack to give it some odds, and you can, it wasn't actually really doing anything. And I think what happens in a lot of these conflicts, you move the artillery in, and it is actually effective. You don't just sit there as a sort of token effort. It blows buildings up, and people in them get crushed. It's fairly effective, and I think it's working a little better, because now that's gone and produced a nice little punch in those units, so much so that I could possibly attack them, but I'm not going to. What I'm going to do though is I'm going to move this artillery 1, 2, 3, 4 to there, and I'm going to try the same tactic against this. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and maximise his movement to the front line, and then try it. There's just something about my brain that's just not compatible with the modern world. Moved all his units. Okay. Now that's better. We've got 1 damage against this one, 2 against that, and no effect against that. It's reporting double, but afflicting the same. So that should be 1. 1, 1, 0. Okay. I'm going to upload this, maybe have a look at that, and see whether I can take it for another 15 minutes. Okay, so I had a look at the maths, and basically irregular units, that was effectively what he got, but irregular units are they have their damage halved, And so you can see that the final result is damage was halved down to 1, but it wasn't done there in the result, so I've changed that so it will happen. But what I've also changed is the factors, so that essentially at the moment it will go from 0 to 2 through decimal points as well, division by 10. So if it gets, so it'll be 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, but it will start from 0 as well. And what I'm thinking of doing, I haven't done it yet, I was going to do it, but I'd have to change this then, is to actually limit this so that it's 0 to 2.5, 0 to, well, not 2.5, there's 2.5 here, 3.5. So it's limited so that it's not, I think 1 to 7 is quite high for a lot of damage. Maybe maximum of 5, that would be 50%, so changing the increments. And that's why I sort of play test, so there's no major errors there, other than it's not 100% clear. So that was the artillery onto that. Unfortunately I moved that other unit. Some Chadian air power here. Now again, I'm going to have to change this air power so that it works a little more like the other one. But 2 to 1 in exchange. So these units are getting well and truly pounded. I mean, he's now at 1.2. He was at 0.2, he's now at 1.2. Now, when artillery is, we'll see how the artillery works out, but I think it's going in the right direction. But when artillery is fairly weak, you can recover from this. For example, he's at depression 1. That was fairly intense. He's at depression 1 as well. No, he's not at any depressions. The artillery is at depression 1. They've both been hit, but if they stay there, they will recover. So you've actually got, it's quite easy to inflict fractional damage, but you've got to keep it above 1 to actually make an incremental effect over time. And I think that makes it fairly well balanced. Okay, so we've now started to move the units. Remember, these are sort of maybe 3-week periods of time. So we've sort of put this position here and sort of said, well, okay, what are you going to do? And obviously we've seen what they're doing. They're trying to, and maybe they don't know this, but I know it because I'm playing it and you can see it, trying to maneuver the irregular units to this front, because the irregular units will be able to retreat, etc., and somehow reorganize the other units into places where they will be not as easily wiped out. But talking about wiping units out, let's see if we can get rid of this mechanized unit. No depressions. An exchange. And another exchange. We should be at 2 depressions now, which is nice. So we've managed to sort of do some damage there, and I don't think I can get there really. Okay. Seven to 1. Defender retreats. That was a terrible die roll. I think the combat still works okay. No movement. I was thinking of holding him back, but I wanted to do that because now that gives him 4 depressions, which means he can only recover back down to 2. So I want to keep the pressure on that unit because that unit's quite powerful. That's why I've got mechanized versus mechanized. And it's sort of interesting that I prepared that to keep that flank dynamic. He moved that sort of out of the way, and when I moved it, I did think of putting it there, which would be even further out of the way, and I could have probably still got there, but I took that advantage. And I think that's the interesting thing about that is sort of, I know it's not the biggest map in the world, but it is still large enough to be able to sort of, support that kind of dynamic movement of, these units obviously have got the movement to be able to do that. I don't think it's one of these silly things. I get frustrated when I see these sort of computer games where they're playing, I don't know, I always think of the Eastern Front because it's just so complicated. There's so many games that do it, but they seem to have like 20 movement, and then they'll just go like this and come around the back, and this was about as tight as movement's ever going to get, but it wasn't quite like that. I didn't sort of, it's like being here going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then attacking. I think the movement here is sensible, and it does reflect a sort of dynamic front line. But that was sort of, this is quite an open space sort of environment. It is all desert, not scrub. This is scrub, not desert, as I quite often use in Syria, Iraq, places like that. That's why it looks a bit darker. I'm thinking about giving it a little bit of texture, but I don't know. Anyway, so we've still got our front line here. Now they haven't been hit at all, but they've got some artillery in now, and I'd like to maybe get that artillery. So I don't know. I mean, this is what I like. I can't point with my finger. This is what I like about these sorts of this game Warblog, but in particular about strategy games, is his ability to think as opposed to, I think, keep saying this, but it always bugs me. I think if you look at these other games, you see the videos that they just sort of, okay, we're going to attack that, so just start moving them in. But what I want to do is maybe sit there and sort of think, how am I going to do it? So what do I want to do? Do I want to end up with that? I mean, it probably, push comes to shove, it comes down to the same thing. But is there going to be, can I get to there? How do I want this? Do I want to just attack on 2 fronts, 3 or 4? I mean, it's not rocket science. I don't have to really sort of invent a time machine to do this, but I do want to sort of think, well, do I want to pull a front this way, or pull a front going that way, or what's going to be the knock-on effect of this, and actually think about what I want my strategic position to be afterwards. For example, we've got this little unit here. Do I want to face that unit with this? I mean, this is actually vulnerable to that. I wish they had names so we can keep saying this and that. Dit and dat. De kat zit op de mat. Ja. Dat is Nederlander. Je kan niet spreken heel goed Nederlander nu. Maintenant. C'est français. Okay. Hello. Right, so diversion there. But how do I want to do this? So essentially we've got artillery, irregular, irregular, and irregular. Irregular. So, I mean, to some extent, we've got these units here. Could I sort of attack that? So create a front line across there, pinned across here like that, and then try and ram these, because these are just going to retreat. They're going to be pushed to target me. So what I could end up with then is a line across here that's going to push into there. In fact, I'm getting excited now, because this is sort of what I want to achieve from this kind of thinking, is to think in advance of what I want to achieve, and then have a loose flank along here. I mean, when I say loose, it's not heavily defended. I don't think it's going to really be, but you can only move one. This unit's going to be fairly restricted. This unit's going to be fairly restricted on its movement. This has got a higher movement rate, so he's a little more, he could probably do more. But I don't think he's, whatever the situation is over here, I don't think he's going to really want to push an assault on his own, because whatever happens, he'll get pulverised afterwards, and so that would be a throwaway for that. But we don't know. But what I'm saying is, I've sort of cleared the flank here to some extent. This has a zone of control down to there, so I'd only need one there to create a sort of zone of control across here. So I could, if I were to get a line like that, I think I'm going to try this. So what I'm trying to do here is I want to focus my assault on that. Now I've got this unit here, this battalion, one battalion here. Okay, that's that. I've got two battalions in there. How many movements has he got left? He's still got him. I could probably get them there. Exciting. Okay. Now that holds that flank there. So what I want to do now is to have something to... There's no way he's going to use any of these units to attack those two stacks, although they're not particularly strong. If I move into Togo, or Tongo, see, that gives it a 1-to-1. I complete that loose flank like that. What have we got in here? Okay. Okay, I think I've figured it out. So essentially, that is astoundingly interesting from my point of view. Now, it doesn't look like the complete sort of flank, but basically this is the flank of force along here and down there. So this is a loose flank, or loose front. I mean, he's not going to just walk through and start attacking my pretend supply lines. I've pinned these units with essentially quite powerful stacks. I mean, there's a battalion and a company in there, a battalion and a company in there. So I could almost go for these, but I don't want to do that really. Now, the reason I was getting excited before, I didn't fully explain it, is because if I can actually somehow surround these units, if I could push into that hex there, maybe I wasted my air power on this unit here, but I did that, so